Welcome back to part 7 of our live training session here with our 2004 Honda Civic Si. This training module, we're going to take a look at cold start and warm-up enrichment here on day 2 of our live training session, making sure that the engine can crank, fire, and run appropriately and have a good air fuel as it's warming up. We're also going to take a look at setting up a basic launch control and finally moving on to looking at how to dial in flex fuel tuning feature, putting some ethanol in the fuel system, and how we go about getting more power out of our engine using ethanol fuels. We have a lot to cover. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Welcome back to our live training session here with our K24 swapped EP3 Civic. In this training module, we're going to take a look at our cold start and warm-up enrichment here with our Infinity, making sure that the idle control is going to work properly and target a higher idle speed when the engine is cold, and then being able to deliver the proper amount of fuel in post-start and warm-up enrichment conditions so that it doesn't run rich or lean, doesn't stall out, or doesn't idle surge or idle too high when we're in our cold start coming up to the normal warm operating temperature. We'll find that we're primarily going to be focused on looking in cold start and warm-up enrichment within the idle control tab and within the start tab here. Now we know in our main volumetric efficiency table on the low cam, that's going to be where we fire off the engine and operate at. On a warm engine, that's properly characterizing the fueling delivery and the airflow modeling within the Infinity. Now we're overlaying our compensators on top of what we've already established on a warm engine. So the VE table represents steady state airflow. It also then represents an engine in the warmed up state. Anytime we're looking at our fueling when the engine is cold or coming up to the warmed up state, we need to go and use our compensation tables here found in our fuel trim coolant and lambda afterstart trim tables. Now we've talked about how these work when we were building our base file, but the lambda afterstart is going to be offsetting the target air fuel when we're in the warmed up state here when we're firing off the engine. So the tables here are both based on run time, engine after start time, and engine coolant temperature. So -2 here would subtract 2 points from our desired target air fuel on a warm engine of 14.7 at idle, and that's going to go against and look against what's coming from our lambda table here. So the lambda table establishes our warm target air fuel, target lambda, and then the offset here is going to be commanding a richer mixture when we're in the cold condition. This allows us to increase our fueling delivery and also allows the closed loop to look at what's going on when the engine is cold and being able to trim or offset against if it's rich or lean. It can start to try to trim itself using that lambda feedback we've talked about in the previous training modules, using that for guiding us in our tuning process. So this is set up here. We should be good. And then we also have our fuel trim coolant here. This adds a certain percentage of fueling when we fire off the engine, and then as the engine runs and coming up to operating temperature. This is a multiplier. Something like 0.3 is multiplying by 30%, adding 30% onto our normal pulse width calculated from our VE and airflow model. This allows us to get our fueling right and compensate. So what we're going to do right now is fire off the engine, and we're going to log it and see what this is going to look like. And we're also going to have, as another factor here, the idle target table. We're commanding here 1400 RPM when we fire off the engine, but we also have our idle target offset. This is commanding another 300 RPM to our 1400 RPM target when we're at the 0 or cranking time. And at 2 seconds in, it dissipates that away. And then at 4 seconds in, it's 0 offset in our RPM, so we'll be commanding just 1400. This is going to call on our base duty to open up the idle control motor a certain amount to allow a certain amount of airflow in. Now we've proofed this on a warm engine. We haven't taken a look at this on a cold engine, so we'll have to see how this performs. We're going to have to go in and look at that as another factor here. So let's jump in. And I'll go into the start tab here and we'll do our data logging from here. And then what I'm going to do is allow it to warm up, and then we'll play it back and talk about what changes we need to make. Then we'll move into taking a look at launch control and flex fuel tuning in this tutorial. Those are the last bits that we need to cover and take a look at here. So let me go make sure it's out of gear, and we're going to go initiate our data log. Control L starts our data log, and we can see it down here in our plot. Let me go ahead and fire it off. Now it took a little bit more cranks than I'd like to see to get the engine to fire off. So we likely are going to have to experiment maybe with our lambda cranking table. We'll have to see how that goes. We can see right now the engine is holding at about 1400. The air fuel has not came online, so unfortunately, right there it came online. Unfortunately, we missed the first maybe 20 seconds of that startup. That's because the inline wideband controller, the heater circuit, needs to warm up for about 20-30 seconds before it comes online and starts to register the output on the CAN line or on the analog output, depending on how you've wired and worked with that wideband. It takes a little bit of time adjustments. We see the coolant temperature here is roughly 79, 80 degrees. We're gonna allow this to warm up. We'll come back here, we'll play back the data log, and then we'll look at what we need to change and update here on our engine and our tables here that we're working with in order to make sure that we have our fueling and any of our idle control needs to be sorted out and get that all right. All right, I'll be back here in a few minutes once this warms up, and we'll continue on with the process. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.